Kindergarten feels like a big deal, doesn't it? In this video, I'm going to be going into a detailed explanation of how to homeschool a kindergartner, because kindergarten is the first year of the rest of their education. We want to instill a solid learning routine, good habits of interaction between teacher and student, and we want to also encourage a love for learning and a relationship with learning. Now hear me when I say this. When I say instill a love of learning, I do not mean by that statement, make everything fun and easy. I think some people do equate those two concepts or make the leap from one to the other, but that is not what I mean. We can instill a love of learning while still challenging our children and growing them to expand out of their comfort zones and expand beyond what they think is fun. So let's get started talking through what you need to know and what you need to do to homeschool kindergarten. Number 1, decide what subjects and skill areas you will focus on for kindergarten. Some of these are rather standardized, and you can check your own local standards for your country and for your state to know what you need to be teaching. But in addition, some of these will be more personalized to the child and to the family's needs, requirements, and values. Now, what this typically will look like is that for language arts, you will strongly focus on phonics, learning to read. You may incorporate some spelling, typically more as support in learning how to read, and you will also incorporate handwriting. Next, you also need math, you need science and social studies. Some people do start incorporating history at the kindergarten level, but for me and also for many others, we prefer to focus more on social studies, perhaps with more of a geography focus, not so much getting into a serious study of history during kindergarten, as well as story, literature. So that will be your read alouds, that you are reading literature, reading good books to your child and working on their listening comprehension through those. Other subjects that you might consider including would be a second language, music skills, perhaps learning to play an instrument or learning songs or learning basic music theory. There, you can choose which path, but music is another option to include. A Bible component or a faith-based component, so that could be Bible, that could be hymns, memory verses, character, and then another potential component is practical life and relationship skills. So these are more of those outside of academic skills, but still skills that require practice for our young children to master and to wield. So that's your starting point. Decide what skills, what subjects are you going to be teaching your kindergartner? What will you be focusing on for this year? Once you have all of those subjects picked, then number 2, develop a daily routine that includes time for daily practice, especially of those skills that require steady, daily, consistent practice. Now, if you are newer to homeschooling, you might not realize how short the times of practice can potentially be. You do not need to be practicing math for 1 hour with a child this age. You do not need to be practicing reading for 1 hour with a child this age. In fact, I don't recommend that you do. Usually, it's much better to do short, consistent, daily practice of these skills that they are learning and building versus long sessions that exhaust everybody. So typically, you will be working with your child on a short math practice session, on short reading practice sessions, on short handwriting practice sessions every single day. This might look like 5 minutes for them to spend on handwriting. This might look like 10 or 15 minutes of reading games and reading practice. This might look like 15 minutes of math practice problems. These do not need to be long sessions. Of course, the exact times are going to vary depending on you, depending on your child's personality, because if they're getting up to get 3 snacks during math lesson, it is going to take longer than if they just sit down and do it. That's just a fact of homeschool life. So if you have more interruptions, yes, it's going to take longer, but the actual focused amount of work time is not going to be that long. And I have daily routine videos that I can link to down below that show you how we tackle our different subjects every day. We are not just doing 1 or 2 subjects a day. We do several subjects, but we don't do them for long periods of time each. We aim for consistent, short learning sessions because these yield great fruit. Number 3, keep in mind that you as the teacher do not determine the rate of mastery that your student has, but you do determine how much you are working on these skills and working towards progress and towards mastery. You don't know at the beginning of your kindergarten year where your child will be in these reading skills, in these math skills by the end. You don't and you can't know that. But you do determine that you will be alongside them on every step of that journey, wherever it is that they end up. With some children, they are already reading pretty well before they enter kindergarten. Other children maybe are just getting started with learning to read. Some children won't be reading until later in life, first, even second grade for some. Some will start out the kindergarten year adding and subtracting while using manipulatives, and some of those students will still be using manipulatives at the end of kindergarten, while others won't need them anymore and will be able to do that adding in their head. That is much more dependent on the student. What you do determine is to work with your student, and you start at the point of what they do know and what they can do, and you work with them to get to the point of what they cannot yet do. But with work, they will get to that point. So don't begin kindergarten with a preconceived idea of where your child will be at the end. Some are going to be way beyond what you might imagine, and some are going to need extra time to get to that point, whatever point you may be imagining. But do decide that you're going to work with them and you're going to work continually toward mastery and progress. Number 4, communicate expectations clearly to your child ahead of time, before the school year even starts. This is when mom says it's time for school, this is what that's going to look like. This is what I expect that to look like. This is not the time to be whining, crying, saying I don't want to do schoolwork. So be communicating expectations that schoolwork is not optional, it's not a suggestion. This is not just a fun idea mom had and you can opt out of it. Schoolwork is your job. We can communicate this to your children. We're not being mean. This is just part of life. Schoolwork is a job, and this is a job that you can do. And I encourage you to do it well and with a good attitude, because when you do it well and do it with a reasonably good attitude, we're actually all going to have fun with this. If you choose not to, if you choose to be reluctant, if you choose to spend a lot of time getting distracted, well, that's going to change our homeschool experience quite a bit. So communicate to your child that there are times for play and there are times for work. And actually, when we sit down and we do the work and we're focused on the work doesn't actually take all that long. Communicate to your child and show them in reality, hey, when we sit down and focus, we can get this schoolwork done in this allotted amount of time, and we can all feel really good about it. But if we get distracted, if we whine, if we complain, if we derail the day with every type of emotional issue, then it's gonna take forever and no one's gonna have a lot of fun doing this. So communicate your expectations and communicate the natural consequences of different ways of approaching the school day with your young child. They can learn this, they can pick up on this. Now at first, to a young child, it can be mind-blowing, the idea that getting distracted is actually their choice. When they choose to get distracted, when they choose to need 5,000 snacks during school time, that's their choice. They are wasting their own time. Whereas if they just sit down and focus, they can learn better. They'll probably understand the content better because they're not focusing on the next peanut butter sandwich that they want. They'll be able to understand the content better, and then they'll be able to move on and have their snack afterwards. Communicating these expectations and working on building good habits from the very beginning will help you for years of homeschooling to come. I also recommend that you build natural motivation into your school schedule. Do the tougher subjects earlier in the day when you and them have more energy to tackle them and use their brains. And then kind of put your fun subjects, your fun school activities later in the day when maybe mom's getting tired, but the kids will be reminding you, hey, we can't miss doing this. And they will motivate you to get those fun subjects done. Make sure your family understands that we have times when we work and we have times when we play. And work is not a bad thing. Work is just a part of life. Learning to do work well and with a good attitude is actually one of the most valuable school skills we can teach our kids. Number 5, develop your plan for reporting and recording learning. Now, this is going to depend on your state. You might live in a place where you have official systems of reporting and recording your learning, in which case follow those systems. If you live in a state where you don't have required reporting and recording to do, then you need to develop a system that works for you. But regardless of state requirements, I think that recording and reporting learning is incredibly valuable to both teacher and student. This could be as simple as mom keeping a planner in which she records all the lessons and all the activities that is done, photos and examples of her students' work from time to time. And I think it can also look like having a daily family habit and routine where at the dinner table you talk about what you learned that day and invite your child to talk with their dad or talk with grandparents who are coming to visit. Maybe make a video call to grandma for them to share the story that they wrote or whatever they've been learning about, that animal that they learned about in science, and to talk about that. Inviting other family members, adults, and friends into your child's education helps your children to realize that it's not just mom who cares about this. This isn't just mom's thing. This is something that the community cares about. This is a communal experience of learning, which is so important for children as they are developing their relationship with their own education. Now, what does this practically look like? I've talked a lot about theory. Let's talk also about practice. So you've got your subjects. Once you have your subjects that you know you need to teach, then you pick your resources. And I'm not going to say your homeschool will live and die by picking the perfect resource. The most important thing is pick a good resource that makes sense to you, that clicks with your brain, that you know you can use effectively, get practice with it, and then use it and use it daily. So I'm just going to give examples. I'm going to give examples based on things that I have used. So for phonics, for reading instruction, you could use All About Reading. That is what I used for kindergarten. I was very happy with it. But you pick that topic and then you use a resource to fill in that subject. So for phonics, we did All About Reading. For spelling, we did Spelling UC Level A, which I love because it gets kids thinking about the sounds letters make. It's not about memorization. It's about just understanding that I can write words by putting sounds together. It's pretty neat. And I also used Explode the Code for a little bit more handwriting and spelling practice. Then for math, I chose resources to fill in that math box. And you can choose one or you can choose more than one. It depends on you, your student, and your needs. For my own homeschool, we have focused on using Math with Confidence and Math UC. Both of them have fairly short student work pages. So for my child, it's been very easy for him to just speed through a couple of worksheets in a day. And we got it. We got our good math practice for the day. For science, you can choose a science curriculum with hands-on experiments, or you could also opt for a more just literature or nature study-based approach at this stage and just pick some nice sciencey books to read with your kids and begin exposing them to these vocabulary and these ideas about how the world works. Now, I actually wrote and created a literature-based kindergarten curriculum that covers your Bible, memory work, nature science, literature, basic geography, as well as practical skills, motor skills, and relationship skills and social emotional learning for kindergarten. And that is all through just reading books with your kids, having discussions, learning through talking about books with your kids, and doing some activities, some of which are hands-on activities, and some of which are activity page-based activities. I have a video on this curriculum in particular. This is just one option. There are a number of literature-based kindergarten curriculum options if you want someone to have created a plan that you can just open it up, go to the next schedule, read the next book, do the next activity, and not have to have a whole lot of brain power expended in figuring out, what should I teach them next? There's not one right answer on what to teach them next in these sorts of literature-based skills. You know, there's different options. You could focus on different things in science. You could focus on different things in literature or social studies. There's not one set right answer because you could choose The Curious Kinder and read one set of books, or you could choose Sunlight and read a totally different set of books. And both are great, solid options. There's not one good answer, but I encourage you to look into different curriculums and find the one that seems like it fits your family. But I do encourage you to read a lot of books with your kindergartner. And don't just read them, but discuss them, talk about them, engage with those books. Not just read them, close them, and move on. But there's so much potential to really build a great foundation for learning and for curiosity. Building curiosity is incredibly important during this stage of just beginning their education. And that's why I actually named this The Curious Kinder. because whatever curriculum you use, I do want you to focus on the potential of this year to spark your child's curiosity to, hey, there's a lot of things in this world that I don't know yet, and I want to know more about them. And they can begin learning those things through unlocking the code of reading, through unlocking the code of math that will help them to explore their world and satisfy that curiosity more and more. All right, I hope that this was a helpful video. You can look into this curriculum more by checking out the links in the description below. And I have lots of other videos on homeschool curriculum. If you have any questions about specific curriculums, I am happy to answer them in the comments. If you have any other questions about homeschooling, kindergarten in general, and routines, feel free to chat with me, leave me a comment, or send me an email at 7inallfamily@gmail.com. I hope that you found this video helpful, and I will see you next time for more nerdy homeschool videos. Bye!